I used to think the worst thing you could step on during a kid's soccer tournament was a rogue Capri Sun. That was until I stepped on a secret that was stuffed inside my wife's gym bag, wedged between her dry shampoo and that old hoodie she never let me wash. It was a Saturday like any other. My name's Wayne McAllister, 42, father of 3, and weekend warrior dad coach of the mighty Coconuts, the most average U9 soccer team this side of Pennsylvania. My oldest, Ella, plays goalie with the intensity of a rabid chihuahua. My middle kid, Miles, prefers sitting in the grass to chasing the ball. And the youngest, Fiona, thinks the games are just long social events with popsicles at halftime. My wife, Camille, had always been that mom, the one with the loudest cheer, the most organized snack list, and a whistle around her neck like she was born on a sideline. Life was good, or so I thought, until the tournament weekend in Glenford that kicked my world between the legs and didn't even offer an ice pack. Camille had arrived a little late that morning, blaming traffic and a flat white that took forever at the cafe. No big deal. I handed her Fiona's water bottle and made my way toward the team tent, giving her a quick kiss on the cheek. That's when she said, "Don't go in the car. I left your hoodie in the trunk and it smells like old banana." Trust me. Harmless? Maybe. But the thing is, that hoodie lived in my gym bag, and I hadn't left it in the trunk. Something didn't click, but I let it go. Until about an hour later. Miles had scraped his knee after attempting his first ever slide tackle. Red tripped over his own feet. Camille was busy chatting with the other moms, and I figured I'd grab the first aid kit from the back of the SUV. That's when I saw it. Her gym bag, the red one she only used for her boot camp classes. Now, I'm not nosy, but when you unzip something and a silky red lace bra practically jumps out like a clown from a Jack-in-the-Box, it sort of demands your attention. Camille doesn't wear red lingerie. I know this because in 15 years, she's worn nothing but beige, maybe light blue if she was feeling wild. I stared at it like it had bitten me. And then I saw the kicker, wedged underneath, a receipt from a hotel not in Glenford, time-stamped from the night before. Room 207. 2 guests. Minibar charges through the roof. I stood there, bag open, Capri Suns rolling out, and my son bleeding from the knee somewhere on field 3. I zipped it up like I'd never seen anything, handed the kit to the ref, and stood there for 20 minutes trying not to barf up my breakfast burrito. I didn't confront her right then. I couldn't. Not with Ella diving for balls like a future Olympic goalie and Fiona handing out dandelions like participation trophies. I did what any wounded father would do. I cheered louder, clapped harder, and died a little behind my sunglasses. That night, while Camille showered off her long day, I started jogging for the first time in 12 years. Just ran. No headphones. No destination. Just pure, blister-inducing rage. I never intended to become a runner. Let's just start there. I used to think those people who ran 5 miles before breakfast were either hiding from the law or recently divorced. Turns out I was half right. That night after the tournament, with my feet hitting the pavement and my lungs threatening to send in their resignation, I wasn't just trying to get into shape. I was trying to outrun the image of that red lace bra and that hotel receipt burning a hole in my skull. Camille had gone to sleep early, curled up in bed like nothing was wrong, like the world hadn't just slipped out from under me in a cloud of fake lavender dry shampoo and betrayal. I stared at the ceiling for half an hour, then laced up my lawn-mowing sneakers and hit the streets like Forrest Gump with unresolved marital tension. I don't even remember where I ran. Just that I didn't stop until my legs gave out near a Dunkin' Donuts that looked like it had seen better decades. Over the next week, I kept up the act. Soccer practice? I was there, with orange slices and a whistle, leading drills like I'd just been hired by the Premier League. Family dinners? Oh, I was Gordon Ramsay himself, whipping up pot roast with passive-aggressive gravy and awkward silences. But behind the scenes, I was tearing myself apart one morning jog at a time. I ran in the rain. I ran in old sweatpants that smelled like regret. I ran because standing still made me feel like I was going to scream. And every time Camille tried to kiss me or asked me if I wanted to watch The Bachelor, I nodded and smiled like the world's most broken wind-up toy. She didn't suspect a thing. Or maybe she did and just figured I was finally getting that elusive dad bod transformation she always joked about on Facebook. But here's the twist I didn't expect. I actually started feeling better. Not in the way that fixes things, but in the way that makes you realize you're not going to die from it. That you can still function, even with a hole in your chest. Fiona started joining me for walks in the evening, riding her little scooter and asking questions like, why don't birds wear pants? And do dogs know they're not human? And somehow, those ridiculous little conversations did more for my healing than all the protein shakes and miles ever could. Ella noticed I stopped wearing my wedding ring and asked if I lost it. I told her I was just trying something new, and she shrugged like it made sense. Miles didn't notice a thing, because he was busy trying to figure out how to tie his cleats in under 10 minutes. Then came the email. Camille wanted to talk. Not in a cryptic, let's catch up kind of way. No, she straight up wrote, I need to talk to you. It's important. I messed up. Now, I didn't reply. Not right away. I stared at it for 3 days, marked it as unread, and went for another run. I didn't want to hear her voice tremble or see that fake apology face she puts on when she backs into the trash cans. I wasn't ready to forgive. I wasn't even ready to talk. I was still trying to figure out if I was a victim, a fool, or just an idiot with good intentions and bad instincts. So I did what any man fueled by confusion and 2-for-1 gas station energy drinks would do. I kept running, kept pretending, and waited for the universe to deliver the next blow. Which, of course, it did. It's funny how life doesn't care about your carefully crafted avoidance strategy. You can dodge texts, ignore emails, ghost hard enough to make Casper jealous, but then fate will plant you in the same middle school cafeteria as your soon-to-be ex, holding a tray of lukewarm tater tots and a juice box, while the universe quietly giggles behind your back. It was career day. Ella had begged me to come in and talk about what dads do, and after briefly considering telling a group of 5th graders that I'm now a full-time human rug for betrayal to walk over, I settled on freelance project manager and printed a sad little PowerPoint. The kind with too many bullet points and not enough dignity. The school had turned the cafeteria into a makeshift auditorium, complete with rows of folding chairs and a portable mic that gave everyone a slight robotic echo. I was 2 slides into my spiel about time optimization strategies, which I'd learned off YouTube 15 minutes before arriving, when I saw her. Camille, standing by the juice table, holding a tray of oatmeal cookies and looking like she hadn't slept in a week. She caught my eye, and for a second, I forgot which slide I was on. Time optimization, indeed. The air left the room, or maybe just my lungs, and suddenly the back of my neck felt like someone had cranked up the cafeteria's thermostat to emotional breakdown. After I finished my presentation to polite applause and 3 yawns, I tried to make a clean exit through the hallway that smelled like erasers and childhood disappointment. That's when Camille cornered me, literally backed me up against a trophy case between a dusty diorama of the solar system and a poster encouraging good hygiene. She didn't waste time. I messed up. You know I did. I didn't mean for it to happen. Her voice cracked, and she clutched that ridiculous tote bag she always carried to farmers markets like it could shield her from the weight of what she'd done. I stayed silent. Not because I didn't have words. Oh, I had enough words to fill a novel and maybe a courtroom transcript, but because none of them would come out clean. Everything felt soaked in gasoline, ready to ignite. She kept talking, low and frantic, about how it was just one night, how she didn't know what she was doing, how she was disconnected and confused. She sounded like she was reading from a script titled How to Apologize without actually owning it. But the worst part, the absolute lowest, most gut-punching moment, was when she whispered, I think I still love you. And I swear, if the janitor hadn't walked by with a mop bucket right then, I might have lost every ounce of composure I had left. I laughed. Not the good kind of laugh. The kind that sounds like you're trying to shake something out of your soul. I told her I wasn't sure if she loved me, or just hated being alone. She asked if we could talk more, somewhere private. She said she missed the kids. Missed me. Missed us. I told her she missed the idea of us, not the reality. The reality was that I was holding a juice box, standing next to a papier-mâché model of Neptune, wondering how we'd become a cliché. And yet, in some twisted corner of my mind, I wasn't entirely sure I hated her, which made me even angrier. I didn't give her an answer that day. I left her there, flanked by safety posters and preteen science projects, and I walked straight into the parking lot with the kind of purposeful stride you only see in men who've just said no to something they desperately wanted to say yes to. It's a special kind of pain, rejecting familiarity, even if that familiarity stabbed you in the back behind a row of aluminum bleachers. But that wasn't the last time I saw her. Life wasn't done dragging us through its dramatic little obstacle course. No. The next time I ran into Camille, it was in the last place I expected, somewhere so ridiculous, so strangely perfect, that I couldn't have written it myself if I tried. It's a well-known law of the universe that thrift stores attract two types of people, those hunting for ironic Hawaiian shirts and those looking to rebuild their lives for under $20. I was the latter. 2 weeks after the cafeteria ambush, I found myself inside Second Chance Treasures, a dusty little place that smelled like mothballs and distant regret. I was looking for a Halloween costume for Fiona's school parade. She wanted to go as a kangaroo, and I had somehow volunteered myself as her matching kangaroo dad, which seemed cute until I realized every major retailer thought adult-sized marsupial suits were either creepy or $50 too expensive. So there I was, pawing through the racks like a bargain bin raccoon, half hoping I'd find more than just polyester and nostalgia. I'd lost a bit of weight by then, not dramatically, but enough that old Wayne, the one who used to crush 2 bacon-egg sandwiches and call it breakfast, had started to fade away. I hadn't shaved in a week. My hoodie had a hole in the sleeve, and I looked about as put together as a garage sale bookshelf. But for the first time in a while, I wasn't pretending. I wasn't performing the role of fun dad or stable husband or passive-aggressive project manager with rage cardio habits. I was just a guy looking for a damn costume with a pouch. And then, in the aisle between lightly used onesies and costumes of questionable origin, I saw her. Camille, wearing a chunky knit sweater, holding a plastic bag of ceramic cat figurines, and staring at me like I'd just walked out of her subconscious. We both froze. Not the dramatic kind of freeze you see in movies, but the awkward, can't look away even though you really want it kind. I stood there holding a kangaroo headpiece, and she clutched that ridiculous bag like it contained a map back to our old life. And then, because life has a cruel sense of humor, the store's crackling speaker started playing Can't Fight This Feeling by REO Speedwagon. I kid you not. I almost laughed, but the sound got stuck in my throat. She approached, slowly, cautiously, like I was a stray dog she didn't know whether to feed or flee from. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stood there like a stuffed marsupial statue, waiting for her to make the first move. I wasn't expecting to see you here, she said, her voice soft, uncertain. I didn't know you shop here. I told her I didn't. That I was only here because Fiona wanted me to be the front end of a kangaroo costume, and I didn't feel like dropping $60 to be publicly humiliated by a bunch of kindergartners. She smiled, weakly, and for a second, we both almost remembered what it felt like to be on the same team. Then she said something that didn't sit right. I've been thinking about us. A lot. And I don't know what it was, maybe the tragic saxophone solo playing overhead or the smell of mildew-soaked corduroy, but I finally snapped. Not yelling, not causing a scene, just letting it out in a low, bitter monologue that had been festering in the attic of my soul. I told her I knew about the hotel, about the red lace bra, about the lies wrapped in morning coffee runs and late boot camp sessions. I told her how I'd stayed silent so the kids wouldn't get caught in the fallout, how I ran miles with my anger blistering under cheap sneakers, how I'd spent days rehearsing conversations that never came. And then I told her the part one hadn't even admitted to myself, that I missed her, but not the her she had become. The Camille I missed was the woman who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during movie nights and snort when she laughed too hard. The woman who once made me a grilled cheese shaped like a heart because I'd had a bad day. But the woman standing in front of me now, she was someone else. And I didn't know how to love someone I couldn't trust. Her face crumbled, not dramatically, but quietly. Her eyes welled up, and she bit her lip, the way she always did when she was trying not to fall apart. She reached out and touched my sleeve, and for a second, my body remembered everything my mind was trying to forget. That familiarity, that warmth. But then came the moment that changed everything, the twist, the sucker punch, the truth that neither of us saw coming. She whispered, Wayne, there's something I haven't told you. The man, the one from the hotel. It wasn't just some stranger. My stomach turned to concrete. It was someone you know. Everything in the room went silent. The discount price tags, the dumb saxophone ballad, even my heartbeat seemed to stop. She didn't say the name at first. She hesitated, like she was trying to rewind time with her silence. But I stared at her, refusing to let her off the hook. And then she said it. Quietly. Barely audible. Robbie. Your brother. I staggered back like she'd slapped me. No. Not possible. Robbie, my younger brother. The golden boy. The charming, job-hopping, commitment-phobic wildcard who once borrowed my car and returned it with a squirrel living in the back seat. Robbie, who hadn't held a job longer than 3 months but always had a new girlfriend, new story, new excuse. That Robbie. I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Camille tried to explain. Said it had been a moment of weakness, that he had been there when we were fighting, that she didn't plan it. I didn't hear the rest. I dropped the kangaroo headpiece on the floor and walked out. Straight into the parking lot, into the cold afternoon, into the kind of stillness that only comes when your past detonates inside your chest. I didn't go home. I didn't go back to the kids. I drove. For hours. No music. No destination. Just me and the slow unraveling of everything I thought I knew. That night, I slept in my car outside a Taco Bell and woke up to the sound of a raccoon fighting a trash bag. I laughed, bitter and loud, and thought, this might be rock bottom. But even rock bottom has a trapdoor. Somewhere between betrayal and acceptance, there's a strange patch of mental land where your emotions run in circles like panicked raccoons, gnawing on the wires of your sanity. That's where I lived for the weeks following the thrift store revelation. Robbie, my own brother. The same guy who once left a bag of hot dogs in my gym locker as a prank. The man who'd borrowed money from me more times than I could count and paid me back exactly never. And now, the same guy who had apparently been there for Camille during our marriage like a cobra might be there for a mongoose. That single name drop cracked open something in me I'd been duct taping for months. All the confusion, the nights I couldn't sleep, the tightening of my chest every time Camille walked into a room like she was dragging a secret behind her. Suddenly it all snapped into place like a jigsaw puzzle with missing pieces that had been in the wrong box the whole time. I should have been angry, furious even, but what I felt was more surgical. Cold. Controlled. Like my body had finally stopped processing the betrayal as a storm and had filed it away as an unfortunate forecast in my personal climate report. Still, life doesn't pause just because your heart's cracked in half and your faith in humanity has been replaced with duct tape and caffeine. Fiona's parade was still happening. She'd made a detailed drawing of our costume pair, right down to the big felt ears and pouch she insisted I keep snacks in. I couldn't let her down. Not after everything else she'd unknowingly been caught in the middle of. So I showed up. In full kangaroo dad regalia. Polyester suit, oversized feet, pouch full of goldfish crackers. The other parents looked at me like I'd either lost a bet or my mind, possibly both. But Fiona beamed like I was a superhero, and that was enough to power me through the entire afternoon of skipping, hopping, and waving at classrooms like I hadn't recently learned that my wife and brother had turned my marriage into a side quest. The parade was held on the soccer field, the same place, ironically, where this all began. The irony didn't escape me. I walked in slow, looking around at the parents with their cameras and coffee cups, the folding chairs lined up like a firing squad of cheerful expectations. Camille was there, too, standing off to the side near the orange slices and juice boxes. She wasn't in costume, but she was wearing that soft gray sweater I bought her 2 birthdays ago. She looked smaller than usual. Not physically, but spiritually. Like something inside her had caved in, and she was now living in the drafty shell of a woman who used to be someone's whole world. I kept my distance. Not out of pettiness, but because I knew if I stood too close, I'd either scream or forgive her, and I wasn't sure which would hurt more. As Fiona took off down the field with the other kids in her kangaroo hoodie, I sat in the folding chair and let myself feel everything, all at once. The betrayal, the loneliness, the pride, the quiet grief of watching the life you built from love turn into something you have to explain to your children in age-appropriate terms. But before I could drown too deep in my own thoughts, a familiar voice broke the moment. Wayne. I turned, and there he was. Robbie. Looking like he'd just rolled out of a thrift shop himself. Which, knowing him, might have been true. He wore that same smug, lopsided grin he always had. Like the world was a joke only he understood and the rest of us were just bumbling extras in his indie film of a life. I stood up slowly. Not to fight. Not to run. Just to see eye to eye with the man who had somehow decided that my wife, my home, and my children's sense of security were fair game. For a second, neither of us said anything. The air between us buzzed like a bad radio signal. Then he said, Camille told you. I didn't answer. I just stared at him. He sighed, like this was all very inconvenient for him. Look, man, it wasn't supposed to happen like that. We just got close. She was hurting, I was around, and things just happened. Things just happened. Like someone trips over a rake or spills coffee on their pants. I laughed. Not a joyful laugh. It was hollow and sharp, like a broken wind chime in a thunderstorm. You didn't happen, Robbie. You made choices. You looked at my life and decided it was a buffet. He shrugged. You weren't around. You were always working, jogging, fixing things. She felt alone. That did it. Not because it was untrue, but because it was half true. Because I had been working and jogging and fixing things. For them. For the life we had. I turned away. Not because I was done, but because I knew if I kept looking at him, I'd swing first and think second. And then something strange happened. Something I didn't expect. Camille came over, not to defend herself, but to stand between us. She looked exhausted. Like she'd spent every hour of every day since the confession reliving it in her mind, trying to fix something with tape and tears that required nothing less than a time machine. I didn't want you to find out like this, she said. I didn't want to find out at all, I replied. And then Fiona ran over. Oblivious to the storm, proud of her parade performance, and holding a first-place ribbon that everyone had been given, but she somehow believed was uniquely hers. She looked up at me, eyes sparkling, and said, "Daddy, we were the best kangaroos." And that's when everything shifted. Because in that moment, with my daughter smiling and my family in shambles, I realized that love doesn't always come in neat packages. Sometimes it comes wrapped in betrayal and duct tape and polyester marsupial suits. And sometimes, the bravest thing a man can do is not punch his brother or scream at his wife, but kneel down, hug his daughter, and decide to move forward anyway. I took her hand. We walked back to the car. I buckled her in, turned up the radio, and drove off, leaving Camille and Robbie standing there like two characters from a soap opera that no longer had an audience. I didn't look back, not out of pride, but because I knew the only direction I needed to go was forward. But just as I pulled out of the lot, Fiona reached into the kangaroo pouch and pulled out something I hadn't noticed before. A small envelope. No name. Just one word written in Camille's handwriting. Truth. I waited until Fiona fell asleep that night, curled up with her stuffed animal and a bowl of cereal she'd refused to eat during dinner because it was too crunchy. I sat at the kitchen table, opened the envelope, and read the letter. It wasn't an apology. Not exactly. It was a confession. Not just about Robbie, but about the year leading up to it. How she had felt invisible. How she tried to talk to me, but didn't know how. How she'd sabotaged what we had because she thought I wouldn't notice. She wrote that she hadn't stopped loving me. She had just stopped loving who she was with me. And then, the final line. But if you ever want to try again, just to talk, just to remember, we'll be at the same thrift store next Saturday. I'll be the one holding a kangaroo pouch. I sat there for a long time. And then I did something truly unexpected. I folded the letter, placed it back in the envelope, and tucked it into Fiona's memory box. Because some truths don't need answers. Just places to rest.